We live in a world that worships urgency. Faster replies. Bigger goals. Harder routines. More noise, more output, more proof that you're doing something. And when life doesn't move as quickly as our appetite, we tighten our grip. We double the effort. We force the timeline. We argue with reality as if reality might negotiate. The ancient Stoics saw the trap. Not because they were lazy, and not because they lacked ambition, but because they understood a brutal truth. The more you try to control what is not yours to control, the more your life becomes a tug-of-war you can't win. You can burn years chasing certainty, approval, perfect conditions, and guaranteed outcomes, and still feel anxious, because anxiety is not solved by more motion. It's solved by clearer command. Stoicism is not a mood. It's a discipline. It trains you to stop bleeding power into the outside world and to concentrate it where it actually belongs, inside your own choices. When your mind becomes steady, your actions become clean. When your actions become clean, results tend to improve, but the Stoic doesn't depend on results to feel strong. The Stoic depends on alignment. In this video, I'm going to share 10 Stoic rules you can live by. Not quotes to decorate your wall. Rules you can apply when your plans collapse, when people provoke you, when fear tries to steer, when the future feels uncertain. Each rule is a way to build an inner fortress, quiet, stable, and unshakable, so you can move through life without begging it to be different. Stoic Rule 1. Guard the one thing that is truly yours, your judgment. Epictetus started with a simple line that changes everything. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Most people hear that and nod, then immediately return to the same habit. Trying to manage other people's opinions, trying to predict outcomes, trying to control how the world will respond. But the Stoic draws a hard boundary. What belongs to you is not the event, not the delay, not the rejection, not the market, not the weather, not the mood of someone you love. What belongs to you is your judgment, your choices, and your response. Your judgment is the lens, and the lens decides the life you experience. Two people can face the same obstacle. One calls it a disaster and collapses. The other calls it training and adapts. The obstacle didn't change. The mind did. That's why the Stoics didn't waste energy begging for easier lives. They trained for stronger minds, because when you have a strong mind, you can handle an imperfect world without losing your center. So what does guard your judgment look like in real life? It means you pause before you label something as awful. It means you notice the story forming in your head. This shouldn't be happening. They disrespected me. I'm falling behind. I'll never recover. And you challenge it like a commander interrogating a rumor. Is that fact, or is that fear speaking? Is that reality, or is that interpretation? If it's interpretation, you have room. And where there is room, there is freedom. This is where most people lose years. They don't suffer only because something happened. They suffer because they keep feeding the same conclusion. They refresh the insult. They rehearse the betrayal. They replay the embarrassing moment. They argue with a past that doesn't listen. They stare at the future and demand guarantees. Meanwhile, their life is happening in the present, and they are absent from it. Guarding your judgment also means you stop treating feelings as orders. Anger can arrive, but you don't hand it the wheel. Anxiety can knock, but you don't invite it to make decisions. Envy can whisper, but you don't let it rewrite your values. You acknowledge the emotion, you let it exist, and then you return to your authority. What is the wise response here? The Stoics didn't deny emotion, they refused to be ruled by it. Think about how often your peace gets outsourced. A stranger's comment ruins your mood. A number on a screen decides your self-worth. A delayed message triggers a story you can't prove. One meeting goes badly and suddenly you conclude you are failing. This is not life attacking you. This is judgment wandering unguarded, like a door left open in a storm. Here is the practical training. Separate the raw event from the meaning you attach to it. The raw event is simple. They didn't call. The client said no. The plan changed. I made a mistake. The meaning is where the suffering grows. I'm not valued. I'm doomed. Nothing works for me. The Stoic interrupts that meaning before it hardens into identity. Try this today. When something irritates you, don't say, "This is ruining my day." Say, "My mind is trying to ruin my day." Then reclaim the power that sentence gives you. Ask yourself 3 questions, slowly, like you mean it. What exactly happened, without drama? What am I telling myself about it? What would a disciplined person choose to do next? And at the end of the day, run a short audit. Where did I give my judgment away? Where did I confuse my interpretation with truth? Where did I react quickly just to discharge discomfort? Then choose one correction you'll practice tomorrow. This is how you become dangerous in the best way. Not loud, not frantic, not easily provoked. Just steady, intentional, and hard to move. One more test. The next time you feel disrespected, don't defend your ego on impulse. Defend your standard. The standard is simple. Respond in a way you can respect later. If you can't respect it later, don't do it now. This single habit will save you from unnecessary conflicts, weak apologies, and decisions made in heat. You will feel your life slow down, not because you're doing less, but because you're wasting less. Guarding your judgment doesn't make you passive. It makes you precise. You still act. You still build. You still pursue your goals. But you do it without desperation, because you're not trying to control the scoreboard, you're trying to control your character. And character is the root that keeps you steady when the wind changes. Once you master this first rule, the rest becomes possible. Because every other Stoic skill, calm, courage, patience, resilience, starts the same way, with the decision to own your mind before you try to manage the world. In the next rule, you'll learn how to choose action without noise, how to move with discipline, not impulse, even when pressure is high. Stay with me. Stoic Rule 2. Act with discipline, not with urgency. Urgency feels productive, but most of the time it's just anxiety wearing a disguise. It rushes you into decisions you haven't fully thought through, convinces you that speed equals progress. It pressures you to respond, explain, defend, and prove, often before you've even clarified what truly matters. The Stoics understood something our culture resists. Movement without clarity is not strength. It's leakage. Discipline is calm. Urgency is loud. When you act urgently, you're usually trying to escape discomfort. Silence feels awkward, so you speak. Uncertainty feels dangerous, so you decide too fast. Waiting feels like weakness, so you push prematurely. But the Stoic knows that not every moment demands action, and not every action deserves speed. Some of the most powerful moves are delayed, not because you're afraid, but because you're precise. Think about how many problems in your life were created not by inaction, but by rushed action. Messages sent in emotion. Commitments made to avoid tension. Decisions made to feel relief rather than alignment. Urgency promises short-term comfort, but it often mortgages long-term stability. The disciplined mind doesn't ask, "How fast can I move?" It asks, "Is this the right move at all?" Discipline means you decide your principles in advance, so you're not negotiating with your emotions in the moment. You already know what behavior you tolerate, what standards you hold, what lines you don't cross. When pressure comes, and it always comes, you don't improvise your values. You execute them. This is why Stoics trained daily. Not to become rigid, but to become reliable. Reliable to themselves. When your behavior is predictable to your own conscience, you stop fearing chaos. You know who you'll be under stress. You know what you'll do when things go wrong. That certainty creates calm. Urgency feeds on the illusion that everything is on the line. That if you don't act now, you'll lose your chance, your status, your relevance. Discipline sees a wider timeline. It understands that most doors don't close because you paused. They close because you acted poorly, or because they were never meant for you in the first place. This rule applies everywhere. In conflict, discipline means you don't raise your voice just because the other person does. You don't escalate just to feel dominant. You listen longer than feels comfortable. You respond later than feels natural. And because of that, your words carry weight instead of regret. In work, Discipline means you don't chase every opportunity. You choose the few that align with your long-term direction. You say no without guilt. You focus deeply instead of constantly switching. You build slowly, knowing that consistency outperforms bursts of frantic effort every time. In personal growth, discipline means you don't redesign your life every time motivation spikes. You don't abandon systems because they're boring. You don't confuse excitement with progress. You show up when it's dull. You repeat the basics when nobody is watching. You let time do its work. The Stoics were not obsessed with intensity. They were obsessed with steadiness. A disciplined person can wait without resentment. They can prepare without panic. They can act decisively without theatrics. And this is why disciplined people appear confident. Not because they always win, but because they don't betray themselves in moments of pressure. Here's a simple test. The next time you feel the urge to act immediately, ask yourself one question. If I wait 24 hours, will this decision become clearer or weaker? If it becomes clearer, waiting is strength. If it becomes weaker, then act, but act deliberately, not emotionally. Another practice: reduce the number of decisions you make when tired, hungry, or emotionally charged. Discipline respects energy. It knows that a depleted mind makes poor choices. Rest is not laziness. It's maintenance. You don't sharpen a blade by swinging it wildly. You sharpen it by stopping. Urgency also loves visibility. It wants you to announce, justify, and broadcast. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't explain itself to everyone. It moves silently and lets results speak later. This silence protects your focus and starves distractions. Most people exhaust themselves trying to look active. The Stoic conserves energy to be effective. If you adopt this rule, something subtle changes. You stop feeling chased by time. You stop confusing pressure with importance. You stop reacting to every stimulus. Your life becomes less chaotic, not because the world calmed down, but because you did. Discipline does not remove challenges. It removes unnecessary damage. And when urgency fades, clarity rises. When clarity rises, confidence follows. Not loud confidence. Quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need to rush, because it knows where it's going. In the next rule, we'll go deeper into something most people misunderstand completely. How to relate to outcomes without becoming dependent on them. That shift alone can change how you handle success, failure, and everything in between. Before we go any further, take a second and commit to this. If this way of thinking resonates with you, like the video and subscribe now. This isn't motivation you consume once and forget. This is training for the mind. And if you want to build a calmer, more disciplined, more resilient inner life, stay with me until the end. Also, leave a comment saying, "I choose discipline over chaos." Writing it down reinforces the decision you're making right now. Stoic Rule 3: detach from outcomes, commit fully to effort. Most people say they want success, but what they really want is control over how everything turns out. They want guarantees. They want certainty that their effort will be rewarded, that their sacrifices will pay off, that their plans will unfold exactly as imagined. The Stoics saw how dangerous this attachment is. Not because results don't matter, but because obsession with results poisons the very effort required to reach them. You can do everything right and still fail. You can do everything wrong and still succeed. This isn't pessimism. It's realism. And realism is stabilizing. When you attach your peace to outcomes, you turn every action into a gamble with your emotional state. If it works, you feel worthy. If it doesn't, you feel crushed. Your confidence rises and falls with forces you don't fully control. That's not ambition. That's emotional dependency. The Stoic solution is simple but demanding. Give everything to the process and release the outcome completely. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop bargaining with reality. You show up prepared. You act with integrity. You apply effort where effort is required. And then you accept whatever follows without collapsing inward or becoming arrogant outward. Think about how much energy people waste worrying about results that haven't happened yet. They imagine rejection before it arrives. They grieve losses in advance. They celebrate victories that never come. Meanwhile, the only moment where influence exists, the present, is diluted by mental noise. Detached effort is powerful because it is clean. There is no hidden desperation behind it. No silent demand that life owes you something. You work because it is the right thing to do. You prepare because preparation is your responsibility. You improve because improvement is within your control. Whether applause follows or silence follows is secondary. This mindset changes how you experience both success and failure. When success arrives, you receive it without clinging. You don't inflate your ego or assume permanence. You stay grounded, knowing fortune is a visitor, not a possession. This keeps you sharp instead of complacent. When failure arrives, you study it without self-destruction. You don't label yourself as broken or behind. You extract the lesson and return to the work. This keeps you moving instead of frozen. Most people fail twice. First, when things go wrong. Second, when they let the outcome define who they are. Detachment prevents the second failure. There is also a quiet confidence that emerges when you live this rule. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop scanning for validation. You stop announcing your plans in search of encouragement. Your effort becomes self-contained. You trust yourself enough to act without external approval. This is why Stoics were so hard to manipulate. You can't threaten someone who isn't attached to a specific outcome. You can't bribe someone whose values are already decided. You can't destabilize someone who knows they will be fine regardless of the result. Practice this in small ways. Do the task thoroughly, then release it. Send the message carefully, then stop rereading it. Prepare for the meeting fully, then accept whatever happens. Train hard, then let the performance unfold. Each time you do this, you reclaim a piece of your nervous system from anxiety. You'll notice something else too. When you stop obsessing over results, your performance often improves. Your mind is clearer. Your reactions are slower and more deliberate. You listen better. You adjust faster. Ironically, detachment often produces better outcomes, but that's no longer the goal. It's just a byproduct. Here is a sentence worth memorizing. My responsibility ends where my effort ends. Say it again when your mind tries to run ahead of reality. Say it when impatience creeps in. Say it when fear demands certainty. The Stoic doesn't ask life to promise success. He asks himself one thing only. Did I act with discipline, honesty, and courage today? If the answer is yes, the day is a success, no matter what the scoreboard says. Stoic Rule 4. Train yourself to accept discomfort before it arrives. Most people live as if discomfort is an accident, something unfair, unexpected, and intrusive. When it shows up, they panic. They complain. They look for the fastest escape. But the Stoics approached discomfort differently. They treated it as a certainty, not a surprise. And because of that, it lost much of its power over them. Life will test you. Your plans will be delayed. Your body will get tired. People will misunderstand you. Some days will feel heavier than others for no clear reason. None of this is a malfunction. It's the cost of being alive. The mistake is not feeling discomfort. The mistake is being unprepared for it. The Stoic trains in advance. This doesn't mean you seek suffering for its own sake. It means you stop organizing your life around avoiding discomfort at all costs. Because when comfort becomes your highest value, fear becomes your master. You start saying no to growth because it's inconvenient. You delay hard conversations. You abandon discipline the moment it stops feeling good. Over time, your world shrinks. Not because you lack ability, but because you lack tolerance. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort to remind themselves of a simple truth. I can handle more than I think. Cold mornings, simple food, long walks, physical effort, silence. These were not punishments. They were recalibrations. They stripped away excess and proved that comfort is optional, not essential. When hardship arrived uninvited, it felt familiar rather than terrifying. Discomfort loses its threat when it stops being novel. Most anxiety comes not from pain itself, but from the story that pain will destroy you, that you won't cope, that you'll break. But resilience is not built in moments of ease. It's built when you stay present in difficulty without fleeing. Each time you do that, your nervous system learns a new lesson. This is unpleasant, but it is survivable. That lesson changes everything. When you stop treating discomfort as an emergency, you stop reacting impulsively. You stop reaching for distractions the moment boredom appears. You stop numbing yourself every time stress rises. Instead, you stay. You breathe. You observe. And slowly, the intensity fades, not because the situation changed, but because you did. This rule applies directly to discipline. Training when you don't feel like it. Working when motivation is low. Being honest when silence would be easier. Resting when ego wants to push. Discomfort is the doorway to strength. If you refuse to walk through it, you remain dependent on ideal conditions. And ideal conditions are rare. Think about the habits you struggle to maintain. They usually fail at the same point, when discomfort appears. The routine becomes boring. The progress slows. The excitement fades. And suddenly, your mind offers a justification to stop. Not because stopping is wise, but because stopping is comfortable. The Stoic expects this moment. He recognizes it, and he stays. Staying doesn't mean forcing yourself brutally. It means choosing to remain present instead of escaping. It means completing the task without drama. It means letting the discomfort exist without trying to eliminate it immediately. This quiet endurance builds something far more valuable than motivation: trust in yourself. And self-trust changes how you face the world. When you know you can endure discomfort, fear loses leverage. You're no longer easily manipulated by threats of inconvenience. You can say no without panic. You can wait without resentment. You can hold a boundary even when it's uncomfortable to do so. Here's a practical exercise. Once a day, choose one small discomfort on purpose. Something safe but challenging. Finish a task without checking your phone. Sit in silence for 5 minutes. Take the harder option when an easier one is available. Notice the urge to escape, and don't obey it immediately. Just watch it. This trains the exact muscle that panic tries to weaken. Another practice. Stop dramatizing discomfort internally. Replace "this is unbearable" with "this is uncomfortable." Replace "I can't handle this" with "I don't like this, but I'm still here." Language matters. The words you use shape the size of the threat in your mind. The Stoics didn't believe strength meant never feeling discomfort. They believed strength meant not being ruled by it. Pain is information. Fatigue is feedback. Resistance is part of the process. None of these require collapse. When you accept discomfort before it arrives, you stop negotiating with reality. You stop expecting life to be easy. And paradoxically, life becomes easier to handle. Not because it softens, but because you harden intelligently. This rule doesn't make you cold. It makes you capable. Stoic Rule 5. Measure yourself by your standards, not by other people's progress. Comparison is one of the quietest ways people surrender control of their inner life. It rarely announces itself as envy. More often, it disguises itself as motivation, awareness, or keeping up. But the effect is the same. The moment you measure your life against someone else's timeline, your peace becomes conditional. The Stoics understood this trap deeply. They lived in a world of status, rank, reputation, and public judgment, yet they trained themselves to step outside that game mentally. Not because they didn't care about excellence, but because they refused to let other people define what excellence meant for them. Your path is not late because someone else is ahead. Your effort is not worthless because someone else has more. Your discipline is not weak because someone else appears confident. Comparison creates a distorted sense of reality. You only see the highlight, never the cost. You see outcomes without context. You see results without the years of invisible struggle, luck, timing, and trade-offs that produce them. And then you turn that incomplete picture into a verdict about your own worth. This is how unnecessary suffering is born. The Stoic replaces comparison with calibration. Instead of asking, "How am I doing compared to them?" he asks, "Am I acting according to my principles today?" This question is quieter, but far more powerful. It keeps your focus internal. It keeps your progress measurable. It keeps your direction stable. Comparison scatters attention. Calibration concentrates it. When you constantly scan what others are doing, your energy leaks outward. You become reactive instead of intentional. You change direction too often. You chase goals that aren't yours simply because they look impressive from the outside. Over time, this creates a strange exhaustion. You're always busy, yet never fulfilled. The Stoics warned against this kind of borrowed ambition. Wanting what others have without asking whether it aligns with your nature leads to a life that looks successful but feels hollow. You climb a ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. Measuring yourself by your own standards requires clarity. You must decide what matters before the noise arrives. What kind of person are you committed to being? What behaviors define a good day, regardless of results? What actions would you respect yourself for even if no one noticed? Once those standards are clear, comparison loses its grip. Other people's success no longer threatens you. It becomes information, not judgment. You can admire without shrinking, learn without copying, be inspired without abandoning your own direction. This doesn't mean you isolate yourself or ignore reality. It means you stop outsourcing your self-evaluation. Here's where many people struggle. They say they don't care about comparison, but their mood changes instantly when they see someone else winning. That reaction is information. It reveals an attachment. And attachment is always a signal that your standards are unclear or externally anchored. So refine them. Instead of measuring your day by what you achieved, measure it by how you behaved. Did you act with honesty? Did you follow through on what you said you would do? Did you respond with restraint instead of impulse? Did you invest time where it truly mattered? These are metrics that no algorithm can manipulate. Another important shift. Stop comparing your internal state to other people's external presentation. You feel your doubt, fatigue, and hesitation. You see their confidence, momentum, and clarity. That is not a fair comparison. One is the backstage. The other is the performance. Most people you compare yourself to are improvising more than you realize. The Stoic understands that life is not a race against others. It's a practice. And practices improve through repetition, not rivalry. When you turn everything into competition, even rest feels guilty. Even patience feels like falling behind. This is not ambition. It's insecurity dressed up as drive. Choose steadiness over speed. Here's a practical boundary to implement. Limit how often you consume information that triggers comparison. Not forever. Intentionally. Notice which inputs disturb your focus or provoke unnecessary self-judgment. Reduce exposure. Protect your mental environment the same way you would protect your physical one. Then redirect that energy inward. Use it to refine your craft. Strengthen your habits. Deepen your discipline. These efforts compound quietly. They don't announce themselves. And one day, you realize you've moved far, not because you chased others, but because you stayed aligned. The Stoics believed dignity comes from coherence. When your thoughts, values, and actions point in the same direction, you feel whole. Comparison fractures that coherence by pulling you in too many directions at once. So remember this rule when envy whispers or doubt creeps in. Other people's paths are not measurements of your worth. They are simply different paths. Walk yours with attention. Walk it with discipline. And judge your progress by the one standard that truly matters. Whether you are becoming more consistent with the person you've decided to be. Stoic Rule 6. Use moderation as leverage, not punishment. Most people misunderstand moderation because they associate it with deprivation. They hear the word and imagine restriction, denial, a smaller life. The Stoics saw the opposite. For them, moderation was not about having less, it was about needing less. And when you need less, you become harder to control. Overindulgence quietly weakens judgment. It dulls sensitivity. It trains the mind to seek relief instead of clarity. When every discomfort is immediately softened, when every urge is instantly satisfied, self-command erodes. Not dramatically, gradually. And because the decline is slow, most people don't notice until discipline feels impossible. The Stoic noticed early. Pleasure itself was not the enemy. Dependence on pleasure was. When your mood requires constant stimulation, your focus becomes fragile. When your comfort depends on excess, your resilience shrinks. You become reactive, easily irritated, easily bored, easily tempted to abandon long-term aims for short-term relief. Moderation reverses this trend. By choosing not to overconsume food, entertainment, validation, stimulation, you regain sensitivity. Simple things become sufficient again. Rest actually restores you. Silence no longer feels threatening. This creates leverage because your nervous system is no longer overloaded. You can think clearly. You can wait. You can decide without craving driving the process. This rule applies far beyond physical habits. Moderation in speech means you don't explain yourself unnecessarily. You don't argue every point. You don't fill silence just to feel safe. Your words become deliberate instead of excessive, and people listen more closely because you don't talk to discharge tension. Moderation in ambition means you pursue growth without obsession. You don't tie your identity to constant achievement. You don't panic when progress slows. You build steadily instead of burning out in cycles of intensity and collapse. Moderation in consumption means you stop confusing stimulation with fulfillment. Endless scrolling, constant background noise, and perpetual distraction fracture attention. A fragmented mind cannot act with excellence. The Stoic simplifies input to strengthen output. This is not about becoming rigid or joyless. It's about choosing enjoyment instead of compulsion. When pleasure is a choice, it enhances life. When pleasure is a requirement, it controls life. Here's a revealing question. What happens to your mood when a comfort is unavailable? Irritation? Anxiety? Restlessness? That reaction shows where dependency has formed. And dependency is always a vulnerability. The Stoic doesn't eliminate comfort. He reclaims authority over it. Practicing moderation builds an unexpected confidence. You start trusting yourself more because you're no longer negotiating with impulse constantly. You prove, in small ways, that you can delay gratification without distress. That proof compounds. Try this practice for 1 week. Remove one habitual excess. Not permanently. Intentionally. Something safe but noticeable. Less sugar. Less screen time at night. Fewer reactive messages. Fewer empty words. Observe what surfaces in the absence. Often, it's not hunger or boredom. It's restlessness. That restlessness is the training ground. Stay with it. Don't rush to replace the habit. Let the nervous system recalibrate. After a few days, clarity increases. Focus sharpens. You feel more present. Not because life became easier, but because your internal noise decreased. Moderation also sharpens desire. When you're not constantly indulging, you can actually want something deeply without being controlled by it. This restores dignity to desire. You pursue with intention instead of compulsion. The Stoics believed freedom was internal. And internal freedom requires limits, not imposed from outside, but chosen from within. Limits give shape to power. A river without banks becomes a flood. A river with structure becomes force. Moderation is how you build those banks. When you live this rule, something shifts. You're less shaken by deprivation, less seduced by excess, less reactive to discomfort. You don't need everything to be optimal to function well. And that makes you formidable in a world addicted to ease. In the next rule, we'll turn inward again, to something subtle but decisive. How you speak to yourself when no one else is listening, and why your internal dialogue determines whether discipline survives pressure or collapses under it. Stoic Rule 7. Speak to yourself as a commander, not a critic. Most people underestimate how much damage is done by their own internal dialogue. They believe the real pressure comes from deadlines, expectations, or other people's judgments. But long before the world breaks most people down, they have already been worn thin by the way they talk to themselves. The Stoics paid close attention to this. Not in a sentimental way, but in a strategic one. They understood that the voice inside your head is either reinforcing discipline or sabotaging it. There is no neutral setting. A harsh inner critic doesn't make you stronger. It makes you unstable. When something goes wrong, notice the first words that appear in your mind. You always mess this up. You're behind. You should be better than this by now. These statements feel like accountability, but they rarely lead to improvement. They trigger shame, tension, and avoidance. And a mind under shame looks for escape, not excellence. The Stoic replaces self-attack with self-command. A commander does not insult his own soldiers mid-battle. He gives clear instructions. He assesses the situation. He corrects errors without humiliation. He keeps morale intact because morale sustains performance under pressure. This is how you must speak to yourself. When you fail, the Stoic response is not self-pity or self-hatred. It is assessment. What went wrong? What was under my control? What adjustment is required next time? This tone keeps the mind engaged instead of defensive. There is a crucial difference between responsibility and self-punishment. Responsibility says, "This is on me, so I can improve it." Self-punishment says, "This is on me, so I deserve to suffer." One leads to growth. The other leads to paralysis. The Stoics chose the first. Pay attention to moments of fatigue. This is when inner dialogue becomes most dangerous. When energy is low, the mind exaggerates threats and minimizes capability. It tells you to quit, postpone, numb, or distract. If you obey that voice repeatedly, it becomes louder over time. Instead, respond calmly and firmly. Not with motivational speeches. With simple, grounded instructions. Do the next step. Finish what you started. Rest after, not now. This kind of language keeps discipline alive without creating rebellion. Another trap is comparison-based self-talk. Others are doing more. I'm falling behind. They're stronger than me. This shifts focus away from action and toward narrative. The Stoic brings the mind back to what is concrete. What can be done in the next 10 minutes? What action aligns with my values right now? The present task is always the anchor. Self-respect grows from consistency in this area. When you keep your internal tone steady, you build trust with yourself. You stop fearing mistakes because mistakes no longer trigger internal chaos. They trigger correction. That alone makes you more willing to attempt difficult things. This rule also protects you from arrogance. A commander does not flatter himself either. He doesn't inflate victories or romanticize effort. He acknowledges success, extracts the lesson, and returns to work. This keeps confidence grounded rather than brittle. Your internal dialogue shapes how you experience pressure. Two people can face the same workload. One collapses under it because every step is accompanied by self-judgment. The other remains steady because the mind stays focused on execution, not self-evaluation. Here's a simple practice. For one day, notice every sentence you say internally when something doesn't go as planned. Then imagine saying that sentence out loud to someone you respect and want to train. If it sounds destructive, replace it. Not with softness, but with clarity. Replace "I'm terrible at this" with "this needs work." Replace "I can't do this" with "this is challenging, so I'll slow down." Replace "what's wrong with me" with "what's the adjustment?" These small changes compound. The Stoics believed that the mind must be governed, not indulged. Left unchecked, it drifts toward excess, fear, and distraction. Directed properly, it becomes a powerful ally. When your inner voice becomes disciplined, your outer actions follow. You hesitate less. You recover faster. You remain functional under stress. This is not about being kind to yourself. It's about being effective with yourself. Stoic Rule 8. Make peace with uncertainty and refuse the illusion of control. Most anxiety is not caused by what is happening. It is caused by the mind's demand to know what will happen next. The Stoics recognized this pattern early. They saw how the hunger for certainty turns the future into a source of constant tension. When the mind insists on guarantees, life becomes a threat. Uncertainty is not a flaw in reality. It is a feature of it. Yet most people live as if uncertainty is a personal attack. They try to predict everything. They overplan. They rehearse outcomes. They search for reassurance in numbers, opinions, and endless information. And the more they try to control the future, the more unstable they feel in the present. The Stoic takes a different approach. He accepts uncertainty as the natural condition of life, and builds strength inside it. This does not mean indifference. It means flexibility. When you accept that the future is partially unknowable, you stop demanding that it behave according to your preferences. You stop fighting the fact that some outcomes are hidden. And in doing so, you recover mental energy that was being wasted on fear. The illusion of control is seductive. It promises safety. It whispers, if you think hard enough, plan far enough, prepare for every scenario, you'll be safe. But this promise is false. No amount of worry has ever prevented a loss. No amount of mental rehearsal has ever eliminated risk. What worry does is exhaust you before the challenge even arrives. The Stoics trained to face uncertainty directly. They asked a simple question: if this does not go as planned, can I still act with dignity? If the answer was yes, fear lost its grip. Because dignity is always available, even when certainty is not. When you stop needing certainty, you become more adaptable. You make decisions with the information you have, not the information you wish you had. You accept that some clarity only arrives after action, not before. This allows movement without panic. Uncertainty also sharpens presence. When you are no longer obsessing over what might happen, you notice what is happening. You respond to reality instead of your imagination. And reality, while imperfect, is far easier to work with than the endless scenarios created by fear. This rule changes how you approach goals. Instead of saying, I'll act once I'm sure, the Stoic says, I'll act carefully, and I'll adjust as needed. Instead of waiting for perfect confidence, he builds confidence through engagement. Each step reveals new information. Each adjustment increases competence. Uncertainty becomes a teacher, not an enemy. Here is where many people get stuck. They confuse acceptance with passivity. Accepting uncertainty does not mean you stop planning or preparing. It means you plan without attachment. You prepare without anxiety. You leave room for correction instead of demanding perfection. The Stoics practiced imagining setbacks not to scare themselves, but to normalize them. Delays, rejection, mistakes. None of these were treated as catastrophes. They were treated as part of the terrain. When obstacles appeared, they were met with composure rather than shock. This is a powerful psychological shift. When uncertainty is expected, it loses its ability to destabilize you. When change arrives, you don't feel betrayed by life. You adjust your footing and continue. This makes you resilient not because you avoid difficulty, but because you are not surprised by it. Try this practice. The next time your mind starts demanding certainty, respond with a calm statement, I don't need to know everything to act well. Repeat it until the urgency fades. Then ask, what is the next reasonable step? Take it. Leave the rest alone. Another practice. Stop asking, what if everything goes wrong? And replace it with, what if I can handle whatever comes? This shifts focus from outcomes to capacity. Capacity is within your influence. Outcomes are not. The Stoics believed freedom came from aligning with reality, not resisting it. Reality includes uncertainty. When you accept that, you stop bracing against life and start moving with it. This rule does something subtle but profound. It loosens fear's grip on your decisions. You hesitate less. You recover faster. You become steadier under pressure. And steadiness is rare. Stoic Rule 9. Treat time as sacred, not renewable. Most people speak about time as if it were abundant. They waste it casually, promise themselves they'll get serious later, and assume there will always be another opportunity to focus, to repair, to begin again. The Stoics did not share this illusion. They treated time as the most finite and unforgiving resource of all, because it is the one thing no effort can replenish. You can regain money. You can rebuild strength. You can restore reputation. But a lost hour is gone permanently. This understanding alone changes how you live. The Stoic does not obsess over productivity. He obsesses over intention. He knows that a busy life is not the same as a meaningful one, and that filling the day with motion does not protect it from being wasted. What protects time is attention. When attention is scattered, time leaks away unnoticed. Most people don't lose time in dramatic ways. They lose it in fragments. A few minutes of distraction, a conversation that goes nowhere, a habit that adds no value, a delay that turns into avoidance. Over months and years, these fragments accumulate into regret. The Stoic counters this by living with temporal awareness. Not morbidly, not anxiously, clearly. He remembers that every day spent unconsciously is a day never reclaimed. This doesn't make him rushed. It makes him selective. He chooses commitments carefully. He guards his focus. He is slow to give his time away, because he understands what it costs. This rule reshapes how you approach your days. You stop postponing what matters most. Difficult conversations are handled earlier instead of later. Important work is addressed before distractions. Relationships are nurtured intentionally, not squeezed between obligations. You no longer assume there will be a better moment. You act when alignment appears. The Stoics often reflected on mortality not to darken their mood, but to sharpen their priorities. Knowing that time is limited forces honesty. It exposes which activities are essential and which are noise. It clarifies what deserves patience and what deserves immediate action. When time is treated as sacred, procrastination becomes harder to justify. Procrastination thrives on the fantasy of infinite tomorrows. The Stoic removes that fantasy. He understands that waiting is a decision, one that carries consequences. This awareness creates urgency of purpose, not panic. Another effect of this rule is restraint. When you value time, you don't rush to fill it with meaningless engagements. You don't overcommit. You don't say yes to everything just to feel important. You leave margins. You protect space for reflection, learning, and deliberate effort. This is not withdrawal. It is stewardship. Time stewardship also changes how you respond to interruptions. Not every message deserves an immediate reply. Not every demand deserves access to your focus. The Stoic is polite but firm. He understands that protecting time is not selfish, it is responsible. Here is a revealing exercise. At the end of the day, ask yourself, what did I trade today's time for? Not what did I do, but what did I exchange it for? This framing exposes low-value patterns quickly. It makes waste visible without judgment. Another practice. Identify one recurring activity that consumes time without returning clarity, strength, or connection. Reduce it deliberately. Replace it with something that compounds: reading, skill building, movement, reflection. Small reallocations produce large changes over time. The Stoic also respects rest, because rest preserves time in the long run. Exhaustion shortens attention, degrades judgment, and leads to errors that consume even more time later. Rest is not the opposite of discipline. It is part of it. When you live this rule, your days begin to feel fuller, not because you do more, but because less is diluted. Your attention deepens. Your actions align. You feel less scattered and more grounded. And something else happens. Impatience fades. When you respect time, you stop demanding immediate results from it. You allow processes to unfold. You understand that some outcomes require seasons, not days. This patience is not passive. It is informed. The Stoics knew that life is not measured by length, but by use. Two people can live the same number of years. One drifts. The other builds. The difference is not luck. It is awareness. Treat time as sacred, and it will begin to work with you instead of slipping through your hands. In the final rule, we'll bring everything together. How to live all of this daily without turning it into performance, and how to close the system with clarity, direction, and calm strength. Stoic Rule 10. Live as if your character is always on trial. This is the rule that binds all the others together. Without it, Stoicism becomes theory. With it, Stoicism becomes a way of life. The Stoics believed that life is not testing your comfort, your intelligence, or your intentions. It is testing your character. Every situation you encounter is an examination. Not an exam you pass once, but one you sit every day. How you speak. How you choose. How you act when no one is watching. How you respond when pressure arrives uninvited. Most people live as if character is something abstract, something they have rather than something they practice. The Stoic knows better. Character is built moment by moment, through decisions so small they are easy to dismiss. And that is exactly why they matter. You don't rise to your ideals in moments of stress. You fall to the level of your habits. This rule changes how you see ordinary days. A minor inconvenience becomes a chance to practice patience. A disagreement becomes a chance to practice restraint. A delay becomes a chance to practice composure. A temptation becomes a chance to practice self-command. Nothing is wasted, because everything trains something. The Stoic does not ask, "What can I get from this situation?" He asks, "Who does this situation ask me to be?" This question cuts through confusion instantly. When no one is watching, do you still act with integrity? When no reward is guaranteed, do you still do the work well? When it would be easy to lie, exaggerate, or take shortcuts, do you hold the line? These moments define you far more than public achievements ever will. Living this rule does not mean becoming rigid or moralistic. It means becoming consistent. Consistency is what creates inner peace. When your actions align with your values, your mind stops arguing with itself. There is less friction, less regret, less self-doubt. You trust yourself because you have evidence, repeated proof, that you act according to your standards even when it's inconvenient. This is why Stoics were difficult to destabilize. You could insult them, delay them, misunderstand them, even oppose them, but you could not easily shake their sense of self. Their identity was not built on praise, success, or outcomes. It was built on conduct. And conduct is always available. This rule also eliminates the need to perform. You stop trying to look disciplined and focus on being disciplined. You stop announcing values and start living them quietly. You stop needing recognition because you know, internally, whether you lived the day well. Ask yourself this at night, before sleep. Did I act in a way I respect today? Not perfectly. Honestly. If the answer is no, you don't spiral into guilt. You adjust tomorrow. If the answer is yes, the day is complete, regardless of how much you achieved or how much went wrong. This is the Stoic version of success. When you combine all 10 rules, something powerful happens. You stop fighting reality. You stop begging for certainty. You stop outsourcing your stability. You stop measuring yourself by noise, comparison, or outcomes. Instead, you become grounded, deliberate, and internally governed. You guard your judgment. You act with discipline. You detach from outcomes. You accept discomfort. You measure yourself by your own standards. You use moderation as leverage. You speak to yourself with command. You accept uncertainty. You respect time. And you live as if character is always being tested. This is not a path to a perfect life. It is a path to a steady one. A life where chaos exists, but does not rule you. Where challenges appear, but do not define you. Where progress is slow at times, but never random. The ancient Stoics did not promise happiness. They promised strength. And strength, when applied consistently, produces a quiet confidence that no external condition can grant or remove. If this way of thinking helped you see your life more clearly, like the video and subscribe now. This channel exists for those who want less noise and more command over themselves. And before you go, Leave a comment saying, "I live by my character, not my circumstances." Writing it anchors the commitment. Carry these rules with you. Practice them imperfectly but consistently. And remember, the goal is not to control life. The goal is to govern yourself, calmly, firmly, and with dignity. Stay steady, stay disciplined, and stay ready for whatever comes next.